Awesome. Okay, Chelsea and Rachel, it's been a long time coming. Super excited to have you on the podcast today. For a little bit of context for our listeners, Chelsea and Rachel are, of course, co-founders of the agency Chelsea and Rachel. Great partner of ours here at Malomo. We've worked together for a long time now, but since my second week at Malomo, I think we met and started working together. We got to meet live in Vegas for Shop Talk, which was very cool. Great way to kind of kick off the gig and hit the ground running with you both. Super excited to have you on for so many different reasons. One being you're one of a few, I think, women-owned Shopify agencies in the space, which is exciting, but a lot of room to grow there, obviously, but really interesting perspective, and have just done amazing things with amazing clients. We're onboarding a new joint client right now, which is super exciting. So just a great time all around to have you on. Really appreciate you taking some time. With that, I want to pass it over to you for intros. And we always like to start our episodes before we get into like the shop talk on the personal side. So with your intros, one or two things that you're excited about in your personal lives would be awesome.
Love it. Thanks, Noah. It's great to be here. We've been running our agency for 8.5 years now, going on 9, and it's been exciting to just see the growth in the space and e-commerce. We love all things in this space. So on a personal note, I'm a very active extreme sport enthusiast. So I take my kids skiing and took them on a double black diamond for the first time last weekend. That was really special in the Southern California mountains. And for those skiing, snowboarding enthusiasts, I actually snowboard. So I'm still like on a board and they're on skis. It's been a lot of fun. But I also just really enjoy when I'm not on my computer to be talking to people and doing things outside. Fresh air, the beach is a happy place, and the mountains. So that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing. Rachel, before we pass to you, I have so many questions. One, how old are your kids doing these double black diamonds on skis?
Yeah, they're 8 and 10. They're with me full time. So it's been a whole adventure of like, oh, what else can we do and push the boundaries on? But they're really athletic, and it's been fun to, just get them on the mountain and try new things.
How do you are you going about the same pace? Like, I don't really know what the conversion between skiing and snowboarding is, and like how that all works going down an insane track like that. So what's that?
Yeah, well, historically skiers are faster than snowboarders, but I used to race snowboarding in slalom and giant slalom. Fun fact, I was on the shred team in high school. So I did, so I actually am pretty fast on a snowboard. And so I can shred down and like just catch up on different things. And it was their first time doing a big like mountain like that, like side. It was a small one. It was in Southern California. It wasn't like a big mountain in Colorado or anything. So, but they did a great job. I was super impressed. Super fun.
Awesome.
I'm so envious that you can snowboard, because I grew up skiing and I always tell myself, I'm like, I'll try it out. And I never do.
Oh, it's so fun. I
Oh,
also love to paddleboard and surf. So snowboarding kind of goes with it in that realm.
yes, for sure.
I'm the same way, Mariah. I have tried though. I'm actually a little bit different. I have tried, and I just,
Not your thing.
it's all the way down the mountain. So I stick with the skiing. But always enjoy it. We do a big trip to Breckenridge every year, and it's always one of the highlights. So
I love that. Breck is great. It's one of my favorite places.
so cool, so fun. Even beyond the skiing, it's amazing. All right, Rachel, pass over to you.
Well, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm co-founder of Chelsea Rachel Company. And my personal one right now is I have a puppy.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
Bulldog. And his name is Atlas. And he's 5 months old. And he's super sweet.
Oh my gosh.
I want to show him off.
How long ago did you get Atlas?
I got Atlas in November of last year. So he's been with us for a few months and he's so cute. I have a cat too, and they've just become best friends. They play together and they do everything together. So it's been great. And like Chelsea, I have 4 kids, and it's like really nice to see like when a pet like really makes a good fit into the family, how, it's such a nice addition. So it's been fun to see my kids interact with the dog, and just the cuddles, and then like all the fun things that happen. So he's eating my hand right now. It's not.
That's not ideal. I'm impressed. So I had a French bulldog. Her name was Brie. And then we also had a cat, and they did not get along. Like when we were growing up, it took them years for, it to settle down. So I'm surprised like your pets are getting along. That's great.
Yeah. My cat and I are like this, like BFFs. And actually they're starting to play right now together. But and that was my biggest concern. Will the dog disrupt my relationship with my cat? Because me and my cat are so close. And I was so surprised. I think it's because they're the same size that they definitely, like the cat doesn't feel as intimidated by the dog because they're kind of like at the same height. So we'll see how it progresses, but so far so good. They even snuggle with each other sometimes. I have this picture of the 2 of them both laying in my lap together, sleeping. God. It's amazing. So
priceless.
I cried a little bit when it happened.
Yeah, I feel like that pet and kid integration that you've struck, that's jackpot status for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for sharing some personal life updates. Let's move over. Obviously, we have to ask about the founding story, having the founders with us. So would love to move to Chelsea and Rachel, hear a little bit about what you were doing leading up to co-founding the agency together. And then maybe we can get into a little bit about what makes Chelsea and Rachel unique in the Shopify ecosystem.
Sure, absolutely. I know we could both jump into this. So I started my background, this is Chelsea, on a digital creative front. So my degree from Pepperdine is actually in fine art and multimedia design with a minor. So I focused in the advertising agency realm in graphic design and account management, and really like seeing like it from a visual standpoint. I got into web development a bit because I wanted my designs to work online, got into Shopify in that ecosystem. And Rachel has a background in digital marketing and strategy, worked in the advertising realm and agency world as well. We both got pulled in on a project for a startup about 9 years ago. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, we'll like focus on this. We'll get the Shopify site up, the design. So I did the logo and the brand and the whole thing. And she focused on the digital marketing and the strategy. And we realized how well we loved working together. And in 3 weeks time, we launched an entire company and launched Kickstarter. So we're like, if we can do this, we can do anything.
That is why I honestly did not know that story. That is crazy. So were you working as individual consultants at the time, just brought into the project, or how did that work?
Yeah, great question. So like Rachel said, she has 4 kids and I have 2. At the time I had a baby and was pregnant with my son and was freelancing at the time, being home. And so I just Rachel had also a collaboration around being like a freelancer as well. And so we both just got pulled down on this project after being in the big agency world for a while, and moved into, let's launch this brand. And then we just loved our brains worked really well and complementary on like, oh, the ideas and this and like the components, and then how we could launch. So it was great.
Wow. That is a hell of a story. Rachel, would you add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key to that story is the fact that, 2 founders having very complementary skill sets really allows for so much more to happen and quickly. I think we always get a lot of questions around like business partnership and having co-founders, and we're co-CEOs of our company. And so It's a unique situation. But I think one where the fact that our skill sets were not opposite, but just there was barely any overlap. So that allowed for us to really be more holistic in the way that we approached the work that we did from the very beginning. And that just what gave us the foothold to grow our agency in a way that was very comprehensive. It's kind of really set us up for what we do best today, and how we've been able to really create this like world-class way of going about the work that we do for brands.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how that would be like very, very mutually beneficial, both to you both, like not getting in each other's hair, but also to clients. Just the balance of skill sets can be really beneficial, I think. So that's great. I'm curious so you started the company, like what was the first thing you did? How did you attract customers? Did you have a customer, like another one that you were going to team up on right away? Or were you just like, oh my God, if we could do this project together, we're just going to go use this as sort of a case study and go from there? Like, what was the go to market when you launched that company right away?
So at the time, I was having a lot of like freelance requests for web development and like different brands that needed things. And after Rachel and I did that project together, I was like, why don't we serve brands together? Like, they need your skills. Let's just do this. Like, what if we started our own piece and agency? And she, as an entrepreneur, was also thinking of these other business ideas at the time. And it was so funny because the business idea she had was like around a product that we kind of saw on like Shark Tank, basically, that had made it like after that. And the thought was like, well, why don't we just start serving it? And she was like, okay, what should we call it? I was like, I don't know. How about Chelsea and Rachel, and we'll add company on it? So we are just our company, and it's stuck, and it's been that way kind of ever since.
Wow. Unreal story. I love it. I'm curious now, like fast forward to today. You said that was about 9 years ago. Is that right? So, how have things changed today? You obviously have a much bigger team. And I would imagine that your skill sets have had to adjust a lot and grow a lot as you've started to bring on more and more people, more and more brands, and a lot of amazing brands in the Shopify ecosystem. So, what's sort of different today than it was 9 years ago? You can't say everything.
Well, I think, there's always like pivotal moments like in the journey that happen, things that take you to the next level. And a lot of things are, we look back and we had a client that, the way that we looked at it at that point, they trusted us to do this work for them. And this was Bobo's Oat Bars, and that client, and the work that we worked with them for, I think 2 years, put us on the map, because it was like that moment which, as you're an entrepreneur and you're fully capable of the work that you do, but you're building a business, and going from like 0 like -5 to 1. There's these moments where it's almost like the client just puts their faith in you, and you're able to show up and do the work and the incredible like mind and strategy and development work that you're capable of, and it just takes you to that next plane. Chelsea and I will never forget the ability to work with a brand like Bobo's and be able to work with them in a phase of their business where they went from small to large. It was so cool to be a part of that. It really was one of those pivotal moments. And then over the years, like those types of experiences continue to come. And I used to be like, every time I'm like, oh my God, I love this brand. I eat their food every day. Or it's so cool because we have had such an opportunity to work with brands that we personally consume, we eat, we wear, we use. And there's nothing cooler, because not only are we as founders like massive brand fans, it's just an ability to like recognize that there's so much more level of impact that we get to do. So fast forward to today, we have a really strong team. We've been able to develop our development team. We have, we call them wizards. Truly, I think they're the most exceptional Shopify developers on the planet. The things they can do front end, back end, and all around, and all the different tech stack that we do is like our secret sauce for sure. And be able to build out a strategy team, a project management team, copy, creative team. It's really been phenomenal to see what we've been able to develop. And I personally have had this dream since I was a little girl. I think most kids, like when you ask kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a doctor. And they don't really know, like, kind of like these ideas. But when I was 10, I want to own an advertising agency. Like, I don't know what was in my head. But at 10, I would flip through Vogue magazine and I would just be enthralled with all of the ads in there. And that's all I wanted to do. I went to college for advertising. Like, there was nothing else. My parents were doctors. It was like the antithesis of the legacy in front of me. And so being able to be in that place where today I get to see the childhood dreams come to fruition through a team and people getting to work on these amazing projects, these smart people that we have around us. It's just really rad. Yeah.
It is so cool. And I mean, I've never met anybody who said at age 10 they wanted to be an advertiser.
Same, yeah.
So that is unique, and I'm sure serving you very well even today. So awesome. Was that the case for you, Chelsea? Were you always into it from the jump, or did you sort of find it later?
So I was always an entrepreneur from a kid age. I like did the probably made the lemonade stands and like all the things from early on. And I was always trying to figure out new ways to problem solve. So like problem solving has been like a jam for me early on, but also ways that we could do it within business. So I was always that person that would sell all the cookies at the events or the different, Girl Scout things or all this stuff, and just try to figure out what are ways that we can serve people better. And I was always a curious kid. So I like to figure out new ideas. And I think, my college journey, when I was 8 years old, I told my parents I wanted to go to Pepperdine University because it was in Malibu, and they were like, okay, but I did. I worked really hard and got the scholarships and was able to go. And I think that to me in that journey also kind of catapulted me to be I want to do something in the business and creative space. I've always loved the arts, but I was how do you make this into a career and a life journey? Because most of the artists I knew were dead or famous. So I just I positioned into my Rachel and I are very big components of self growth and leveling up personally as well as professionally. And one of the areas that we talk about as a team is mindset and your genius zone. Do what you were created to do and do it really well. So our level of standards in our team and in our work has always been extremely high and excellent, because it's how we hold ourselves to that. But I think what I've also learned in this journey is, as I've done design and development and stuff, we have much better designers and developers on my team now that I can just communicate and lead. And what I love to do is talking with the brands and envisioning what that next step is. How do we reverse engineer this? What do we do in terms of the action? And that bigger vision is very exciting to me. And it's so fun to see the growth trajectory of some of these companies on e-com that can go from 0 to 100 very fast. And then also the ones that are going slower. We as an agency have grown slower, but we've done it methodically because we want this to be done in a way that's best in class, and also supports our team and our people without kind of the burnout hustle that's most in the culture too.
Totally. When you were talking about that last part and you were talking about methodically growing slowly, I went back to what you said just a couple seconds ago, which is we focus on mindset and mental health and all that stuff, which I think is pretty unique in today's hustle culture and very cool. I think Mariah and I are very lucky that our founders have a very similar mindset. We have a 4-day work week at Malomo, so we're technically off on Fridays. It doesn't always work out that way, for me, but or Mariah, but it's an option. It's there if we need a long weekend, and little things like that go a long way, I think. So very cool that you've been able to take that approach as well.
We actually agree. We're the only agency rolling out a 4-day work week that we know of.
Really?
As well.
So are you going to do Fridays off? Is that?
Yep.
So same, go ahead. Rach could probably talk on it more, but same kind of concept of let's roll this out and make it where it's effective, because we believe that, we are experts in our field, but that takes thinking time, which is emotionally, mentally draining at times. So how do we then become our best when we're doing it in a way that is set? We're actually doing a trial with a company too.
Oh, cool. So somebody's going to help you figure out what are the results of this trial period. Is that Is that what the trial is? Like a trial?
So it's actually what an organization called the 4-Day Work Week. It's like the official organization, and we're doing a North American pilot program, and it's all science research based, the entire like thesis around it, and they roll these out in 6-month increments. And so it's really formulated in a more methodical way, and it's challenging in the service-based industry. How do you do that? But I'm really confident that we have some really simple tactics that are easy to just manage. And I think that, you know, when you're in the business of servicing clients and developing work, there's always a dance to play in terms of leading and listening. And I think that, you know, with the right management and the right setup for success, then these things are totally possible. I mean, the research says that most people spend 11.2 hours a week on mindless meetings, tasks, and unnecessary actions. That's more than one full day of work out the door. So I think it's a really cool mental shift. I'm excited to see what happens as our team gravitates towards it. And yeah, I mean, we solve lots of complex problems, you know, and our team are rock stars. And in order for us to continue to always perform at the level that we do on a consistent basis and in a way that's always excellent, we've got to protect our brains in better ways. So we'll keep you posted on how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Super curious
100.
if you had like the results that we saw. We started with a trial as well. I think it was 6 months, Mariah.
So we had a 1-month trial in September, and then we went to a 6-month trial, and then now we've completely rolled it out. But I'm very glad we're talking about this, because I think 4-Day Work Week might have like shouted us out on LinkedIn or like commented on our post when we first announced it or something. Like, I know it sounds really familiar. And I remember when we first announced it as a company, like just helping with the blog post or the press release, whichever we did. And there was like, that still to this day is like one of our most trafficked pages. And it just like, everyone was super interested in our approach. And like we've gotten brands of ours who will reach out to us and be like, hey, we're actually thinking about rolling this out. Like, do you have any documentation around it that would help us? And we rarely get to talk about it on the podcast. So it's super interesting. But I remember my viewpoint and my perspective shifting, because a lot of people obviously were like asking about it. And it's not that you're doing like less work. It's just, you're doing more efficient work. Like, you're just using your time better. And I think that's something that is like always stuck by, where it's like, especially my friends too, are like, oh my God, you're off on Fridays. Like, work is like not hard. And I'm like, well, let's like think through that for a second. Cause like, you're grinding on the other 4 days. Right. And like, sometimes whatever, you're working on those Fridays, but it's also a great relief at the end of the week to know like, okay, I'm going to work really hard. I'm not going to just be on my laptop wasting 45 minutes at the end of the day. Cause like, I'm going to start this huge project. I'm not going to start it at the end of the day, right? Like, just hold off until tomorrow. So I love that you guys are rolling it out. That's so fun.
Yeah. And I know for us, like, we've seen the results we saw to like convince our leadership team to keep it rolling was like insane productivity increases. Everybody reported feeling like way better about work-life balance. For me, it's funny because when Yao, our CEO, was trying to get me to come over, and obviously successfully did, he was selling me hard on 4-Day Work Week. And I'm like, man, I will not use that. Like, I'll be working every Friday. It's not even a selling point. But now I'm like, which is true. Most Fridays I work, but it is so nice not to have like the constant slack, you know, it's focused work on Friday that you work a couple hours and get a ton done because there are no calls on the calendar. And it's a great time to sort of work on your own time and at your own pace. And it's been awesome. So very curious to hear how it goes for your team. Hopefully very similar to us. Okay. We've talked about like a ton of these things, but I'm curious. I always like to ask, you know, with the thousands of new agency entrants every day, it seems like in the Shopify ecosystem, like I said, you've talked about a couple of them already, I think. How would you both say Chelsea and Rachel is differentiated from some of the others in the space?
Oh, I love this question so much because I think, yeah, there's all kinds of people out there and say that they do similar things. What really makes us different is our approach to e-commerce is holistic by nature. So we are strategy leads into good UX UI design, leads into good development, and we are collaborators. So we are the agency for you if you want collaboration, you want to learn together in taking you on this journey, and you want a best in class result where you don't have to feel like, where's the people or what are they like, where's the communication and the structure on that? Like, we are humans talking to humans, but we are experts in the tech space to help you make those decisions that will ultimately grow your brand.
Amazing.
I think
I feel like you've said that before.
It was so good.
Very good. I loved it. A lot of passion behind it too, I think. Rachel, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that really sets us apart is the fact that we just stay in our lane. We keep our nose down and we work. Like we're not very concerned about what others are doing that are similar to us. We just do the work that we do really well. And we do it by our rules. You know, we're not trying to take someone else's model or anything like that. We're all self-starters and we're all incredibly talented, smart individuals. And we're all experts in the roles that we play at the agency. So we really lean into that. And I think because of that, our results are so good. And the fact that we are such a strategy focused agency in everything that we do is also really key, because there are things that we develop and create that are just locked into very specific philosophies that we hold to the agency that are very key to just, focusing on direct to consumer optimization. Like I always say, we focus on optimizing your direct to consumer destination. Like you can focus on sending qualified traffic and all of the other things that you do to bring people to the store. Let us optimize that experience, whether it's conversion, revenue, retention, all of that. That's really the core we do. And it's all strategy led. And so I think that sets us apart a lot as well.
I would agree. And I think that the lesson in there of like, control what you can control, focus on yourself, focus on what you're good at, can certainly be applied. I know actually that it can be applied to us, to, every other app in the Shopify ecosystem, because there's so just like there's, 1,001 agencies, there's just as many, if not more apps. And like, right now, it seems like there's just as much, if not more, order tracking apps. And, we're constantly fighting competitive pressures, but at the same time, like I think we do our best work and we have our heads on the most straight when we're just focused on like what we can control and being as best as we can and what we know we're good at. I think that's a unique approach for agencies, especially ones who are like looking to grow, because it's probably really hard to do. Like, frankly, there's, before we started recording, we were talking about travel and seeing all of these different agencies and, competitors out there at these events we're going to be at. And so I just think that I totally agree, Rachel, like that is a very unique and awesome approach to sort of differentiation.
I also would say on that, Noah, the real big thing that's very different about us, like we just have a really cool group of people. Like we become friends with the brands that we work with, like there's something to be said about working with experts, but also like up leveling your team and liking who your partners are. Like, I think that's really key. For sure. And I'm curious on that note, like I would imagine that you get a lot of inbound requests. You probably do some outbound as well. What sort of merchants are you looking to take on at Chelsea and Rachel? Like, what's a really good fit for you? Yeah, it's such a great question. We've done a lot of research, but our best fit are in one of two camps. They're either an emerging brand or a venture backed where they want like experts to help them launch out really well. Like we just launched a new to world product for Elevate You, which is Steve Harvey's brand. And they scaled really quickly. So we can build out all the ecosystem on Shopify Plus and like what they need. The other is an established brand or one that's newer to direct to consumer as a sales channel that wants to elevate their brand. So whether they're doing new packaging or new branding or new something, and they want to go from a JV to a varsity level, and they know that direct to consumer is the route that they want to go, we're a really good fit for that. So really educating on that. We've become experts in all things subscription and even in migration to Shopify Plus. So if they're looking at any of those realms, that's like our jam. And we're really good at like helping those brands grow in those ways. But a lot of brands that do like to work with us for a long time are more in that like retainer growth model of like we're executing strategy and development for them on a continual basis, as opposed to just projects.
And as part of that strategy, I assume that means like growth as well. It's not necessarily just web development, because you talked about the subscription side, right?
Yeah. I'll let Rachel talk to strategy.
Yeah, we love to create subscription programs or models of recurring revenue, whether it's membership or something along those lines. Subscription is something that's been at the core of our agency for years. And we've been able to, put up some really amazing subscription programs for brands who are of all different kinds, whether it's food and beverage or wellness or even beauty. Being able to work with brands to really create some really specific strategies for subscription to hit KPIs. So using data and using, some of the metrics that we have access to, and looking at what the LTV goals that they have for, whether it's repeat purchase behavior or subscriptions lifetime value, putting in place a lot of strategies that help them to achieve that, besides just the vanilla standard subscription program. And so that's another area of the D2C world that we've truly mastered, in my opinion.
Yeah. Speaking of new entrants all the time, the subscription category seems to get a new solution, weekly. What platforms or platform do you prefer, and why? And have you looked into any of the new entrants?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We are premier partners with Recharge, and we've been working with Recharge for a number of years. But Recharge has a phenomenal platform. They have an extensive API. They have a theme engine customer portal that's fully customizable. There's so many, and they've just released a whole lot of new features rolling out in Q1, Q2 of this year, which really create the experiences that we do that are very custom, more accessible to merchants, which is really cool. It's great innovation for the platform. But we do also work with other subscription platforms. It's really what the brands are most interested in. What I love about the Shopify checkout integration is that now, no matter what these subscription program comes out, what they do is essentially the same. It's all unified at this point. And so you're just really looking at, what are some of the ancillary features that a subscription program might have that could benefit the brand. And, it's all different. A couple of the ones that we do like are Smarter, SEO, Retection, which is, I think, now called CAI now. But those ones, you want to look for ones that have proven themselves in the marketplace, have features that are maybe extending beyond just repeat purchase payment processing on subscription contracts. Essentially, that's what it is. But there's some cool things. Some are integrating some rewards and loyalty features. Some are integrating some SKU swapping. There's some really neat stuff happening in the subscription space right now.
Yeah, I want to stay on it for just at least one more question. Sorry. Because I know it's sort of a core offering for you, and you have a unique perspective on it, standing it up for a ton of the, largest brands in the ecosystem. When I think about subscription, I think about it at the highest level. It's a subscription program. You opt in, and like now you get this thing or these things every month or whatever the timeline is. Like, what do brands miss when they think through that? What is like a couple things that can make your subscription program stand out? Want to get a little bit tactical here.
Sure. So I think that the first thing that should go out the door is assumptions. A lot of times brands think they just assume what their customers want. They assume frequency options, they assume quantity selections, they assume product mixes, they assume price differences. There's a lot of assumptions that go in because a subscription platform is like set it, like the set it and forget it is totally non-existent. It's not something that we ever, that we really advise against, because you'll never grow a program that way. So I think it's really becoming very intentional. This kind of is an overarching theme in any type of D2C like strategy, is just think like your customer. It's actually really simple. Like, don't like take off your marketing hat or your founder hat or your, operations hat, and just be your customer and think about the things that your customer truly actually wants. A subscription model might not be the answer. And that's okay, because you know what, there are some really cool other like suggestions out there that are helpful. People, just because they're not on subscription doesn't mean they want to purchase your product again and again and again. It's just, they would prefer to do it on their own terms. And so that's where things like membership might be a better viable option that allows for you to create a quarterly fee or an annual fee that someone pays for. And with that, they get subscription like discounts on every product that they purchase, whether it's frequently or it's one time, whatever it is. Or even thinking about things like, there's a cool app called Get Repeat, where it's an AI driven messaging platform that says, based on your past purchase history, it recognizes that in about 35 days, Rachel, do you want more midday squares? Yes, I do. Or no, I don't, like it's more AI driven. I think those types of things is the next level of retention across D2C, is really making sure that you are not thinking that you know every answer, and you're really listening to your customers, and you're really crafting those journeys that reflect exactly what your customer wants.
Amazing. That led me right to the next question, which is more about retention overall. You just gave a couple really awesome use cases. Is there anything else top of mind before we move into trends? Because I want to get your thoughts on that as well. Overall, regarding retention, that you think a lot of brands don't think about or miss, or are there specific apps like a Get Repeat, who we've spoken with recently as well, that brand should be considering when they're thinking about retention in the new age, when it's so important, more important than ever, probably, right, to keep your customers that you acquire for these ungodly costs?
Well, I think that if I were to tack on another tool in the toolbox that we love, and I think it's important because it's another tool to think about differently, is the use of an app or Tapcart, with Shopify stores, because you're able to use a channel specifically for retention, and it's intentional, and you're able to curate experiences and releases and sales and drops on a channel like that to actually increase LTV. So it's not necessarily a top of funnel strategy. People are going to download an app for your store. They're going to be repeat purchasers, and the reason to download needs to be really incentivizing for them. But what an amazing way to curate an experience. And I mean, Tapcart, your push notifications are free. Those, like, you're not paying for text messaging. Right. And they've opted in. And so they get them on their phone. So I think it is a really amazing tool to do that. And we've been able to do some pretty neat things with some of our brands. And one of our strategies this year in 2023 is really increasing personalization across all channels that we're working on. And then, I think there's a lot of really cool things in the mobile space with personalization that can really, increase retention.
Yeah, that's awesome, because we haven't heard that, Mariah. I don't think we haven't heard the Tapcart use case as something that can stick out for retention, but I've spoken with the Tapcart team very recently, and we're kind of ideating some joint value props. So it's top of mind for me. And I love that answer. Moving on more broadly to 2023 trends, there's a ton going on in our space right now. I know that you work with a lot of, more upmarket, bigger brands, venture backed, all of that good stuff. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you think the biggest trends of the year are. I've seen recently, like, I think today or this week, Shopify just released like 100 new features or something insane like that. Like, I can't imagine having to keep up with that, which I'm sure you both have to do all the time. Me, not as much. Components was launched earlier this year for enterprise merchants, and I'm sure that is on your mind. So what are you thinking about in terms of the way the world is going in the Shopify ecosystem? What's going to stick out and be, big trends to look out for this year?
Well, I think Shopify made it really clear they're going after retail in a very big way. So the big components of that is literally the components announcement was to go after larger retail. Think the mall companies of the world, that malls are starting to disintegrate or become more boutique-y. How do we then have the online sales channel really like rev with that? I think there's always going to be a place for in-store shopping, but now the online experience has to match and even evolve better. So it's that much more of how do we make Shopify's ecosystem and online web presence that much more to impact the in-store brands and sales. We see this a lot when it comes to some of the features they've rolled out with Shop Pay. So like the single click checkout, a lot of the ability to now explore other brands through this. What does it look like to have tracking authorized and like 2-day delivery or less, or a lot of the things that we've seen in the ecosystem of online sales. Now Shopify is gearing up to make available for that much more. So I would say as far as trends go for the platform itself, it's more so into the space of like, we're in 2023, brands now not only have to have an online presence, but they have to optimize it. And if they're not going to be in existence in the next, 5-10 years. So it's that much more of like, what platform are they actually doing it on? There's other platforms in the space like Magento and Salesforce e-commerce and a lot of things that can really get traction. But where Shopify is really taking a stake in this, they say they're 10% of all e-commerce sales in the US right now, is they're going to service more of these brands in retail and those that have a storefront.
Right. I'm curious how you think or how brands currently are thinking about the omni-channel approach, and especially for a brand diving into the e-commerce side of the business for the first time, traditionally been in, brick and mortar retail. Like, is the idea that you sort of mimic the exact same experience online that you have in the store, which I imagine is really hard to do? Is this an opportunity to sort of, brand refresh and do something cool and unique in your online presence? Like, how do you think brands should think about that, like taking that big step?
Yeah, I love this conversation because to me, omni-channel became the trendy buzzword from a bunch of marketers. But the reality is when it comes to business and when it comes to like retail itself, it's been trying to figure out how do we make this more accessible online, because historically retail brands, it was the lion's share of, the foot traffic. So I think exactly what you were saying, you have to be a lot more innovative and you have to be a lot more creative on how you're presenting your brand that much more online, because your consumer buyers expect that, right? It's a perfect example. It's like Apple and Apple products right now. So many of us have iPhones and you get used to the updates and the user experience like on a massive scale. But the apple.com website is very different on your desktop versus your mobile. And it was done that intentionally. You have to have a simplistic user experience design for how you're working on mobile versus how you're working on desktop, et cetera. And I think retail, it's the same way. How your storefront needs to reflect in your mobile, needs to reflect in your desktop, but it has to be positioned to your customer at that buying path right there. So to make it easier and to make it like in flow, that's what I think is top of mind for a lot of these brands looking at omni-channel. It's less about the term omni-channel as it is about how do we really serve customers holistically in this, and then have it simple to check out, whether it's on our store, in our site, on our mobile device. All of that should be connected and should be more seamless. So it's more of like, how are these channels becoming simplified and more seamless?
Yeah. I love that Apple example because I'm like thinking through putting in a support request for my AirPods, and it's like, I know exactly what you're saying. I was back and forth between the computer and the mobile experience, and that's not top of mind. Like a lot of times you don't even realize it, right? Because they do such a good job making it seamless in between the different interfaces. Rachel, would you add anything to trends?
Yeah, I think that there should be a breaking down between different digital channels for brands. So I know that, for example, like you've got your D2C store, you got your Amazon business, you have your marketplace business, and a lot of them operate very independently of one another. But there's things like Amazon and Shopify there's such a connection between the buyer and those two platforms. And there should be an understanding and a breaking down of walls between both of those two core channels specifically, because what we've seen with our brands who are scaling both D2C and Amazon is that there is a crossover journey that exists. And if they're paying, if you're buying ads for Amazon and you're buying ads for the Shopify store, and we're already dealing with blended metrics at this point, there should also be a consideration of blending the interpretation of the data between Amazon and Shopify, because they really are kind of working in conjunction with one another. So for example, we've seen that, the first time purchase for a product will probably most happen if it lives on Amazon, search for on Amazon, and perhaps bought there, just whether they want to try it, they want the 2-day shipping, they want like the really loose commitment, a very unbranded experience. But then as they get the product and there's more to it, there's more versions or more flavors, or like there's a series of things that go along with it, they're brought into the brand, because where do they find that information? On the direct-to-consumer website. And so you've got this crossover of shopper. And there's also this understanding that the shopping buying patterns for a single person are very diversified based on needs, based on what is shopped for. Like Chelsea knows, I am a serial online shopper. I call it research. That's what I do.
Charge it to the card.
Yeah.
But I'm so fixated on the ways of understanding how brands are communicating the journey. What do I get? What is my experience? These are all these things I'm learning. And as much as I am a brand fan shopping directly on their websites, I am also a really big Amazon shopper too. And so it's understanding that there should be a breaking down of kind of these preconceived ideas that the channels are exclusive to one another. I think that they're very much more so connected in many ways.
This will show my ignorance, I'm sure, but like I think a big gripe about Amazon is the lack of data that you're able to pull out of it as a brand. Do you have any strategies for how brands can start thinking about like leveraging Amazon for more tailored experiences, or whatever data that is available, being able to identify that traffic and target them in unique ways?
So it's interesting you say that. Yes, Amazon locks it down for a reason, right? So we actually have a good relationship with a partner agency that only does Amazon called Elevate. And some of our cross brands, like they work on keywords in theirs, and then we focus on the keyword strategy for their SEO and their growth on their data on their Shopify. So it's instead of the mindset of thinking of it as competition, you need to think of it as how does we all rise together. So there are things that impact both. Even as consumers, we can buy on Amazon or buy direct from brands, but your brand loyalists, the ones that are buying on your Shopify site, that are in your ecosystem, you get not only more data, you can test out more features, you can do more specific things as a brand rollout or VIP that you can't do on Amazon. So the goal with Amazon is interest, and then the goal of your Shopify site should be more depth and content and becoming the expert in that space for owning that. But the keywords can cross. There's a lot of things that you can collaborate on, and a well-rounded brand that wants to grow usually has a position on both, and they have strategies around both to scale, but they should be talking to one another. Got
it. Wow. This hour flew by for me. I'm like looking at the clock. How did we get through this hour so quickly? Super awesome. Thank you so much. Incredible insights, some tactical stuff, which is always really, really great for the listeners. Before we send you to your 1 o'clocks and 4 o'clocks, depending on where you are, give us 1 or 2 things that's helped you throughout your careers. You've had an amazing run so far, only up from here as well. So what is 1 or 2 things that you both have sort of leaned on that you would want to share with our audience?
I mean, my gut reaction first off says you can't do it alone. You need to have mentors. You need to have people in the space to learn from. You need to have a growth mindset yourself to like always be up leveling and learning. E-commerce is a rough industry. Like you have to be on your game to want to learn and want to grow. And then I think two, for us, it's being adaptable to change. So like we kind of say this flex powder, right? Like change is going to happen, but it's more so how you show up and be human in the midst of it. But I know for myself and our growth in our company has really been a lot of that. Like hard stuff's going to happen. It's how we show up each day that matters.
Love that.
I mean, I think too, I think in ecom, in being founders, and all of the things that come along with that, just knowing that, one, I'm alive. There's always things that's more important than business, right? There's life, and there's joy, there's family, there's all these things, and try to stay grounded in those things for the good and the bad. I think that in the last few years, I think for many, many people, there's been a real sense of like heaviness and burden and burnout across the board. And I've had reminders for myself to remember to lock in on the things that really matter most. And those aren't the things that are annoying or hard or difficult in business, or just small potatoes some days to the things that are, more important in life. So perspective.
I love how it's come full circle. We started talking about mindset and mental health and all that stuff, and wrapping it up with that. It's super important to us at Malomo and top of mind for many, I think, in our space, because everything is moving so fast. I swear I get like brain zaps every now and then because of it. So it's very, very important. I love that. Thank you so much for coming, Rachel and Chelsea, switching up the the order there, but really appreciate it. This was an awesome episode, and I know our listeners will love it too. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Mariah, for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
guys.